Scott, maybe just talk a little bit about the carrying on of the momentum from last night. With the way that you played before Christmas, and are you satisfied that all the boxes were ticked off as you get ready for back-to-backs here within the division?
Yeah, like a lot of what we did. I liked our start again, up until they got their power play goal, and then they kind of took over in the end of that first. But second period, we didn't give up a 5-on-5 chance like that, and really kind of got ourselves back into that game. And then anytime you come back and win hockey games are always you always feel good about them. But at the same time, you like to get out in front and kind of run away with it. But no, it's just to come off of that break and having the few days off and just getting back at it was good to see.
Not going to mention Nashville's power play to you, but just in terms of the Predators, though, like you played them early in the year, it was on a back-to-back. What kind of difference, if any, are you expecting from them in the front end of this back-to-back?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, they're a team that's in our division. Can't ever take anybody lightly, whether it's the Wild or Colorado or Dallas. You have to look at everybody that's in your side. That they're always tough outs. There's not a lot of love, between us either. And we had a spirited game down in Nashville, and just again, they're not going to give us anything if we allow them to try to play their game. They're going to be tougher to knock off. And you mentioned their power play. Obviously, they got some elite guys that are on that, and we'll have to make sure. And it'd be great if we could stay out of the box first and foremost. But we got to know where their weapons are. We know how obviously Stamkos, Marchessault, we know where they like to get to. So we're going to have to do a job against them.
You had mentioned last night that you're really impressed with the big three, and they had to gobble up minutes. But now going into a back-to-back, do you have to utilize them a little different between yourself and Dean, going into these two games?
Yeah, we talked about it. Obviously, we've got 7 guys. We're going to use them. We'll use them all. Not sure how we're going to go about it yet, but we'll make sure we have fresh legs. But at the end of the day, this is 3 and 4, and then it's going to turn into 4 and 6. Again, it's the league. It's where we are. January for everybody's going to be busy, prior to the Four Nations. So just take it one at a time, get ourselves ready to go. We would like to, hopefully it's one of those games where we don't have to overload those top 3. But it's hard when, like last night, when there's a lot of specialty teams, then those guys, all 3 of those guys are out there a lot, whether they're killing or on the power play. So we're doing both, kind of what's happening now. So, those guys have been great, and they just, again, we're getting contributions from the other 3, and that's what we need.
This could be coaching, and if it is, feel free to take credit for it. But watching that game last night, almost looks like it's not an effort thing or anything, but your team seemed to figure out Ottawa and what they were doing as the game went on, kind of found the weaknesses in them. Is there something to be said about your team, its maturity, and its ability to kind of use its hockey IQ to get better as the game goes on?
Yeah, I think actually we do as a group. We do have a really good sense of what the opposition is throwing at us. Our pre-scout, obviously, it's well organized and we throw it at them, but there are certain things that the way teams defend in their end of the rink, and they are different. Not everybody in this league does the same thing, and so if you can make sure that you're exploiting the areas that in case it was Ottawa last night, if you're exploiting some of the areas that we felt that we could attack, and you do it, that's great. And then tomorrow against Nashville, there's going to be another look. It's going to be a different look, and so we're going to have to make the adjustments. But it's the players that kind of buy in, recognizing that what worked one night against one team doesn't always work the next night, and it's the adjustments that allows them to get open and get their chances.
Mark Scheifele said last night when he was getting interviewed by Ron McLean that this team just does a really good job of not getting too high, not getting too low. Even last year after the disappointment in the playoffs, not allowing that to knock the team down. How do you think this team, in the time you've been here, has grown in that respect in handling those peaks and valleys?
Probably the biggest thing is recognizing that you don't win anything in October, November, or even here in December where we're sitting, that there's still a lot of hockey to go. You don't know what's going to happen moving forward. It's a busy schedule. It's just until you kind of get into the second half of the season, get into the playoffs, that's the hockey changes. It becomes a different game, and we're just trying to build a product here. We're trying to build a consistency that we know that when we're at our best and we're doing it, playing it to a T, that we will have success. And so far, obviously it's worked. but like I mentioned, there's still a whole lot of hockey to go here.
You guys, of course, will be judged, by how it ends later, because you're almost the same place you were last year at this time. Just wondering what you see that, much the same faces, but what you see in this team that gives you faith that it will be a different spring.
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't know what's coming in the future here, but at the end of the day, I think our depth has really been counted on, and it's been big for us, whether that's through injuries, but also depth-wise it isn't always the same group. I know right now the Scheifele line is rolling, but if you look in the first half of the year, it was the Lowry line, it was the Nemestikov line, or even some of our fourth line has given us great minutes. So it's been a real good job with our depth. Has probably given me kind of that good feeling of knowing that if we hit some bumps, we hit some injuries, we hit some situations, that we have people that can step in.
You guys were saying too that your style of telling it like it is, what they need to hear, whether it's good or bad. After a bad period, you'll tell them. How do you walk that line of not becoming Mr. Negative too often?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's part of my learning curve over the years. Certainly working with good people and how they handle different situations. But for me, it can get old real fast if you do it all the time. And I think there's a time and a place for everything. You have to always recognize. Sometimes it's a schedule. Maybe you're caught up in a lot of games in a short period of time, and fatigue is a part of it. Might be injuries, people missing from your lineup. So there's always things that you look at. Sometimes where you have a team that's tired and run down, and you don't take advantage of that. Might be the time to go after them. So there's just, I think, timing's everything. They recognize it's not. It's more about us playing at a consistent level, competing at a consistent level, that really is easy for me to go back to, because they're the ones that they challenged each other, and it was the thing that we talked about most kind of going into the season was competing every night.
Morgan Bear was saying you have to suppress the Irish, the O Arniel occasionally.
I'm not allowed to say that anymore.
Just one on Adam Lowry. It looked like he took a puck up high there. Have you seen him since he left the ice? Is he okay?
This just happened?
Well, yeah.
I was watching football down there, so I haven't I hadn't heard anything yet. So
I think the list of players on this team or on pace for career years is like 8 deep or something like that. When you're sitting in the coaching room with your staff and kind of look around, how much pride do you take in what you've been able to get out of those players, the plan you built for them to follow?
I don't know if that's us taking pride in. I think that's the player. They're getting better. We had all talked about being 10% better coming out of training camp from last year, and if that means they're leaning towards career years, that's awesome, because that means they're taking their own responsibility for their own acts and going out and being better. You don't win with 5 or 6 forwards and a couple of defensemen and a good goalie. You got to win with a deep lineup and everybody being a part of it. And if we're getting that many guys that are having good years, then it's building towards what's coming at the end of the year. And hopefully that you can't sit and rest on it and say, oh, I've had a great year. There's still lots to go.
On the topic of sort of knowing when to pick your spots and knowing when to back off so things don't get old, can you find a moment in this year so far where you kind of thought to yourself, hey, I backed off and I'm glad I did? That shows evolution.
I couldn't give you the exact one, but there have been a couple. There's been a couple where I don't always go in the room. There's some after games. Sometimes I'll stay out just to either let it fester or let them. And it's been great because our leadership has stepped in and kind of taken over. Maybe had their own little talk, but there hasn't been many of those. I think that. There's situations that you kind of just got to read the room, and when the timing is right. Sometimes if you wait till the next day and they have to think about it for 24 hours and then you kind of jump on them the next morning, there's sometimes has a little bit more of a meaning with video behind it. So just probably what I've learned over the years is just kind of not being, doing the same thing. It's kind of, doing a little bit different, making sure the timing of it is always helpful for the next game, because that's all you're really worrying about. You're trying to get them to go for that next game and be at their best, and whether that message is sent between periods right after a game or the next day, that's pretty much kind of how I approach it.
Back to the blue line, the sort of problems to solve. I mean, you got younger and inexperienced guys, but if you put your vets in the top 4 now, you got 2 righties together, so I don't know if that is a problem, but when you're sorting it out, what are the most important things to solve?
We started last night with that. We kind of had 2 lefties, 2 righties. But it ended up being, we knew Ottawa kind of how they kind of forecheck and how we had some time on our breakouts, and I just felt that our D were getting caught on their back ends, and so we just switched to it, kind of switched them back out again. We were kind of getting a feel where they were trying to go with their kind of trying to see who they wanted against Scheif or who they wanted against Lau, and I know we had last change, but they were still trying to do some things. So it was kind of based on that. But you know what guys learn now, what guys go through, whether that's October or that's December or whether we get into January, is all experience, and it's all building their own brand for what's coming down the road. And like I said, after that Four Nations, then obviously the playoffs, when we won't talk too much about that because we're not there yet, but after the Four Nations, that hockey really it really turns up another notch. And so I want all these guys to get these experiences and go through all these.